Hi everyone. The month of focus for August is strength training, and today we've got a really special guest. He's a bodybuilder. Welcome, Michael.
Hey.
To begin with, how about you tell us how you first got into bodybuilding?
Well, I first started training when I was 13-year-old. I started when I was doing, push-ups and press-ups and things like that in the house. And when I got into training, I straight away made an association to training and feeling good. So it really got me at a young age. So from 13-year-old doing push-ups, and then from then at 14, 15-year-old, I started doing home gym. And then I was fortunate enough that Dad knew a local professional bodybuilder. I was introduced to him at 16-year-old. And then from then on, I got the bug, and I just kept on training and kept on eating right and learning more. So I started competing at 19. So the first competition I did was the under 21s, which I finished 4th in the north of England. And then from there, I then moved up a category. I went into the novice category because I was too old. And I started competing against the bigger boys. And then I realized how big these boys were. So I ended up having a couple of years out, came over to Australia, and I sort of put it on the back burner for a little while, just while I was setting up my business and things like that. And then fortunately enough, since then, I competed quite recently in March and came away with second in the Arnold Classic, which is an international show here in Australia.
Nice one. How do you stay motivated and passionate about what you've done for that many years?
Well, I think it stems from two factors. So you certainly have to have some element of intrinsic motivation. I think that's important. Okay, so it has to come from within. However, for me personally, when I first started, my motivation was, very selfish. It was very much, I want to look a certain way. I want people to treat me a certain way. And once you got to a certain standards, you kind of get immune to all of that. I don't know, maybe with age, your looks disappear, so you want to become more wisdom. So then I started looking at more external factors. I started noticing how I could influence people around me. I could say young children or young kids of 14-year-olds starting to get into training, young girls potentially with eating disorders. I've had individuals who've went through depression and anxiety, and I've noticed that every time that you introduce exercise or you clean up the diet, it helps them. So that to me is now an external motivator. So I'm not intrinsically motivated anymore. I've proved all my accolades to myself. I've got nothing else to prove. So arrogance has been set aside, and now it's just about helping others. So for me, I get the biggest kick from helping other people, and by helping them make a solid change in their lives towards something better or greater.
Yeah.
By doing that then spurs me to keep on training. Okay, because unfortunately, we live in a world of superficial worlds, and people buy into the way that we look. So if I look a certain way, if I win a certain competition, immediately it opens up the horizons. It opens up for me to have a greater impact on a larger audience. So it's as simple as that, as basic as that. I compete now as a means to an end to help the majority.
What are some of the biggest highlights that you've had so far?
It's got to be the Arnold Classic. I never ever thought, being 14-year-old, 13-year-old when I first started, 6'2", 50 kilograms, like I was like a weed. I never ever thought that I would be able to stand up against the big boys on an international stage and hold my own. It was just never even a dream of my wildest dreams. So to be able to do that, I'm pretty happy. I would say pretty much that's the highlight of my career up to now.
Yeah. So the Arnold Classic, does that get all the best bodybuilders from around the world, or what's it like?
I get asked this quite a lot. It's quite a difficult question. They say, well, where are you ranked? Well, the guy who beat me in March, he was a guy from Dubai. So technically, I'm first in Australia, but I don't like to say first in Australia because technically it was an Australian-held competition. So I just say I did rather well. I came second, and hopefully I'll beat the guy next year. I'll see him on stage again.
Yeah. So you're going for it again next year?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. It's now that I know what I'm capable of. I'm firing on all cylinders. Basically, I'm training very hard. Anything. I trained very hard for the last competition, but there was always a niggling thought in the back of my mind, thinking, "Oh, you know, why am I doing this? You know, 5 hours a day training. These guys are superior. They've got better genetics, better, you know, background, better work acumen than me. But now that I know that I can hold my own, there's no self-doubt. So I feel like going into the next competition, I can certainly give it a lot more of a harder push.
How has bodybuilding changed since like the Pumping Iron documentary with Arnold back in the 70s?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think it's went backwards. Unfortunately, what is happening is I'm finding a lot within the industry is people are driven by the wrong factors, which are things like monetary value, you know, sponsorships, endorsements, products, everything. Everyone wants the quick buck and the fad diets, and unfortunately, because it's so easy to manipulate a person's passions when you are dangling a carrot in front of them, essentially, you know, I'll make you look this way if you take this product. There's a lot of bad information out there. So I was lucky. I was fortunate that I got into it when social media wasn't prevalent. But now, going forward, it is part of the world. It is part of society. We do have to accept it. So what I always mention to people is try to find those individuals who aren't motivated by the wrong factors.
Yeah.
Let's take me, for example. As you know me quite well, Damon, I own a beauty salon. So my income is solely from the beauty salon. I do the coaching, the online coaching, the personal training. I do that as a secondary, supplementary form of income, but it's not my primary. So I do it mostly to help individuals. I'm always skeptical of the individuals who it's their primary, purely out the fact that if they remove the monetary value, they've lost the houses, they lost the nice cars, they lost the nice jewelry. So for me, I'm in a very fortunate position where I do just try to help without the money aspect. So yeah, to go back to the original question, I think personally the golden eras are gone. That doesn't mean that they're not coming back. I just think people need to get smarter with what they're listening and what they're allowed to absorb.
Are there any other bits of advice that you give to someone who wanted to get into the bodybuilding industry?
Seek out those who know. That's always been a big motto of mine. So when I first got into the game, again, I was fortunate enough that my dad introduced me to a pro bodybuilder from a very young age. He knew a hell of a lot. Then I went to university, and unfortunately, I got arrogant. So I thought all of a sudden I knew everything. You know, I learned the sports science. I became a sports scientist, a personal trainer. I became a sports injury therapist, and the books, unfortunately, they close the mind. They're great to have in the background. They're great to have for knowledge, but you've got to understand that the word science is a Greek word for knowledge. So we have to understand that we're only as knowledgeable as what the current update knowledge is. Mm-hmm. So knowledge changes all the time. Science changes all the time. So what we knew back in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, it's constantly evolving. And the same with education at university, it's constantly evolving. So I like to approach it in a different manner. I like to approach it by finding individuals where they've got proven track records. And I try to either replicate them or try to, slightly change or evolve their education to make it even more beneficial.
Definitely. And I actually think with science, sometimes it does take a little bit of time for what we know to actually then catch up to what is being published. So
definitely, yeah.
Sometimes a bodybuilder might actually know a little bit more than what the latest science says because they're testing and saying what actually gives me the results I want.
Yeah. I heard a famous quote from a rather acknowledged scientist a couple of months back, and he was saying that bodybuilders are 20 years ahead of most mainstream science. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that in order, bodybuilders will put ourselves, through the rig. We'll put ourselves through ridiculous diets, ridiculous training. We'll go to such an extreme where the common man or the common woman won't go to them extremes, and especially within the health sector, because they're regulated and they're funded by the government and they're highly restricted through legislations. they are essentially kind of stuck in a rut until, you know, things are cleared through their health and safety parameters. Mm-hmm. Whereas with a bodybuilder, we'll just push through. As long as we get goals, we'll push through. So a lot of bodybuilders, what I base a lot of my science on, and where I've got a lot of my information from, is from veterinarians, what they're using on the horses, the dietary, the supplementary. That then comes down into the bodybuilders, and then voila, 20 years later, the common man gets it on the street. Yeah. So it's a common trend. We keep on saying this time and time again. These horses are tread like kings. You know, they're the best of the best. The speed, the race horses are tread like kings, and because they're at such a high level of performance, and the mammals, well, you know, it kind of works the same for us as well. Obviously, you've got to take into account there's certain limitations and things like that. But the bodybuilders do all of that. We put ourselves through the rig, and hopefully it works out okay. And then we pass that knowledge on to the common man, and then the common man and woman. And then eventually it gets passing through the government. But we're kind of 20 years ahead. I do believe that, Sim. Yeah. We are ahead of the mark.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, I trained with you for about 3 months, I think, and bigger gains in that time than I'd ever had previously. And I was only working out with you twice a week.
Good to hear. I like that. It's great.